Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into something that's really close to my heart: how to make adventure biking and walking more sustainable.
Whether you're exploring cities or, those peaceful countryside trails.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're using Not Paste, Not Text as our guide for this deep dive.
And what I think is so interesting about this source is that it goes beyond the typical eco advice and looks at how sustainable practices can actually make these adventures even better
Okay.
for you and the places that you visit.
I'm intrigued, but I think before we get into the specifics of bikes and boots, we need to define what we mean by adventure biking or walking.
Yeah.
What makes it different from just running errands or commuting?
I think it's all about the mindset. Think,
Yeah.
exploration, challenge, connecting with nature, with culture. It's intentionally choosing to, use human-powered movement to experience your surroundings differently.
So it's not about ticking off miles, it's about the why behind those miles.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Not Pace, Not Text talked about the rise of urban cycling tourism.
Hmm.
Is this something you've noticed as well?
Absolutely. It lets you uncover hidden gems in a city and see the urban landscape from a whole new angle while you're minimizing your carbon footprint.
This reminds me of this one time I was biking through a part of town I thought I knew really well, like the back of my hand.
Hmm.
And tucked down this tiny side street was this incredible vintage bookstore, the kind you'd never spot from a car. Total aha moment.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what this source is getting at, right? Good bike infrastructure actually makes this kind of exploration more enjoyable,
Yeah,
more possible for more people.
exactly. When a city has dedicated bike lanes, safe crossings, and, plenty of bike parking, it encourages people to choose two wheels over four.
Right.
And the source pointed out something that I thought was really fascinating. Well-designed bike infrastructure often goes hand in hand with other urban planning choices that make a city more enjoyable overall.
Oh.
Things like mixed-use zoning. So shops, housing, and services are all clustered together so you're not forced to drive, even for those daily necessities.
So it's not just about the bikes themselves.
Hmm.
It's about creating an environment where biking makes sense for how people actually live.
Precisely. Now, that same ethos of connection extends to rural bikepacking as well.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just passing through, you become a part of the landscape in the communities along the way.
Okay, bikepacking is definitely on my bucket list. I love the idea of setting off with everything you need strapped to your bike and exploring the countryside at your own pace.
Hmm.
But Not Paste, Not Text emphasize how bikepacking seems to inherently encourage sustainable practices.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, when you're bikepacking, you're immersed in nature. You're traveling slow enough to really notice the details, the changes in the landscape. And you quickly learn that minimizing your impact isn't just an abstract idea. It's essential for your own enjoyment and for preserving the places you're visiting. Plus, you end up relying on those small towns along the way for supplies, meals, maybe even a friendly chat with a local bike mechanic.
Uh-huh.
That's direct economic impact, and it's often going to places that don't see the big tourist buses.
So it's a win-win for both the adventurer and the communities they encounter.
Absolutely.
Now, we've talked about exploring on two wheels. What about those of us who prefer to travel on 2 feet? What does sustainable adventure look like in the world of walking?
Well, let's start in the urban environment. Not Paste, Not Text made a point that I think a lot of people miss. A truly walkable city is about more than just being pedestrian friendly.
Okay.
It's about design that encourages walking as a primary mode of transport.
So it's about creating a city where you don't even need a car to get around,
Right.
where everything you need is within walking distance?
That's the ideal, yeah.
Yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Walkable cities often have higher population densities,
Okay.
which actually reduces the overall carbon footprint per person.
Because everything's closer together?
Mm-hmm.
You're not traveling as far for work, errands, social activities.
Right.
It's like a ripple effect. One good design choice leads to another, which leads to a smaller environmental footprint overall.
Exactly. It's about designing cities for people, not just cars. Now think about your own city. How easy is it to get around without a car?
Oh.
What could make it more walkable?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm already thinking about some areas in my own neighborhood that could use improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears now to walking outside the city.
Hmm.
The source also talked about sustainable adventure when it comes to hiking.
And this is where the concept of leave no trace becomes crucial.
For those who aren't familiar, Leave No Trace is all about minimizing your impact on the environment while enjoying the outdoors.
Hmm?
But I'm curious, how does this apply specifically to biking and walking adventures?
It's about considering the small choices we make throughout the journey. For example, when you stop for a break, are you choosing a durable surface to sit on, like a rock or an established campsite, instead of trampling delicate vegetation?
Yeah.
If you need to go off-trail, are you spreading out the impact instead of creating a new, noticeable path? Even with biking, it's about being mindful of where you park your bike, choosing designated areas to minimize erosion or damage to plants. It's about taking those extra steps to ensure the places we love stay pristine for everyone.
So, Leave No Trace isn't just a set of rules, it's a mindset, a way of approaching the outdoors with respect and awareness.
Right.
Okay, we've talked about the joys of sustainable adventure biking and walking, but realistically, there must be some challenges in making this vision a reality, right?
Of course,
Yeah.
every journey has its bumps, and when it comes to sustainable adventure, one of the biggest hurdles we face is infrastructure, or the lack thereof.
Right.
Even if people want to bike or walk more, they need safe and convenient ways to do it.
Because what's the point of encouraging people to bike if there are no safe bike lanes to ride on, right? Or telling people to walk more if the sidewalks are crumbling and the crosswalks are dangerous. It's not just about individual willpower, it's about creating an environment that supports those choices.
Exactly. We need dedicated bike lanes, well-maintained sidewalks, pedestrian-friendly crossings. And the source actually suggests something that I thought was pretty cool, integrating public transport with cycling. Imagine being able to take a train to a trailhead, then hop on your bike to explore the surrounding countryside.
That would make sustainable adventure so much more accessible to people who might not have the time or resources for long, self-supported trips.
Mhm.
But even with better infrastructure, there's another challenge we have to address: over-tourism.
Unfortunately, that's the reality we face in many popular hiking and biking destinations.
Right.
It's great that more people are getting outdoors, but it also puts a strain on those natural areas.
Think about your favorite hiking trail or that scenic overlook you love to visit. Now imagine it overrun with people, the trail eroded, trash scattered around.
Right?
It completely changes the experience, doesn't it?
It really does.
So how do we balance encouraging people to get outdoors while also protecting those delicate ecosystems?
That's where sustainable tourism practices come in.
Okay.
And Not Pass, Not Text emphasize this. We need to find ways to manage visitor numbers,
Mm-hmm.
whether through permit systems, staggered entry times, or even educating people about less visited alternatives. We also need to invest in making those trails and destinations more resilient to the impact of increased traffic.
Imagine your favorite hiking spot. Now imagine it overrun with visitors. What are some ways you would suggest to prevent overcrowding without ruining the experience for everyone? That's a question I want to leave with our listeners for now.
That's a good one.
We'll come back to this later. But let's shift gears to what might be the biggest challenge of all:
Okay.
changing mindsets.
This is where it gets really tricky. In so many places, we're fighting against a deeply ingrained car-centric culture.
Right.
It's not just about building bike lanes, it's about changing how people think about transportation.
Because even if you have the best infrastructure in the world, it won't make a difference if people still automatically reach for their car keys every time they need to go somewhere.
Exactly. It's a real chicken and egg situation.
Right.
Do we build the infrastructure first and hope people will use it, or do we try to change attitudes first and then build the infrastructure to support those new habits?
It's a tough nut to crack. And Not Paste, Not Text offered some interesting suggestions on how to shift those mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
One idea that caught my eye was using education campaigns to highlight the benefits of active mobility and not just for the environment.
That's right. We need to frame sustainable adventure as a win-win for everyone, not just a sacrifice we have to make for the planet.
Okay.
It's about showcasing how biking and walking can improve our health, our well-being, our communities, and yes, even our wallets.
I'm all for saving money, but how exactly do sustainable adventures save you money?
Well, think about all the expenses that come with owning and maintaining a car. Gas, insurance, repairs, it adds up quickly. And that's not even factoring in the hidden costs like parking fees and traffic tickets. When you choose to bike or walk, you're not just reducing your carbon footprint, you're also freeing up a significant chunk of your budget.
It's like getting a pay raise just for choosing a different mode of transport.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that extra money can then be used to support local businesses, invest in experiences, or even just put away for a rainy day.
Now, speaking of supporting local businesses, something that really resonated with me in Not Paste, Not Text was the emphasis on how sustainable adventure can actually boost local economies.
Hmm.
We touched on this a bit with bike packing, but I'm curious to hear more about how this applies to hiking and walking as well.
It's all about slowing down and engaging with the communities you're passing through. Instead of just driving from point A to point B, imagine stopping at a local cafe for a coffee and pastry, picking up fresh produce from a farmer's market, or even spending a night at a family-run guest house.
Right, it's a
Okay.
much more immersive and authentic way to experience a place, and it injects vital income directly into those local economies.
Yeah.
Creates a ripple effect that benefits everyone involved.
And it helps to preserve the unique character and culture of those communities.
Hmm.
It's about fostering a more reciprocal relationship between travelers and the places they visit.
I love that. It's about moving away from the transactional nature of mass tourism and towards a more meaningful and sustainable form of travel.
Hmm.
Now, while we're on the topic of positive impacts, I'd be remiss not to mention the personal benefits of sustainable adventure.
Yes.
We've touched on the financial and community benefits, but the impact on your own well-being is truly profound.
It is.
Oh, absolutely. Beyond the obvious physical benefits of exercise, there's something about being outdoors, moving at a slower pace, that just does wonders for my mental and emotional state.
Mhm. Now, Pasna Text highlighted how these kinds of adventures can cultivate a deeper connection with nature, which has been shown to reduce stress, enhance creativity, and even boost our sense of gratitude. When you're traveling under your own power, you're more present, more attuned to the sights, sounds, and even the smells of your surroundings. It's like a moving meditation.
It is.
Yeah.
And that connection with nature goes beyond just feeling good. I find it often sparks a renewed sense of responsibility for protecting the environment.
Absolutely. When you experience the beauty and fragility of the natural world firsthand, it becomes much more personal. You're not just reading about climate change in a news article, you're seeing its impact on the landscapes you love.
Right. And that can be a powerful motivator for making more sustainable choices in other areas of your life.
Hmm.
Now, while we're talking about making sustainable adventures accessible, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how we can ensure these experiences are available to everyone, not just those who are already fit, able-bodied, or have a lot of disposable income.
That's a crucial point. Sustainable adventure shouldn't be an exclusive club. No Paste, No Text suggests creating a wider range of trails and routes that cater to different abilities and fitness levels. So instead of just having one challenging expert-level trail, you might also have a more leisurely, family-friendly option in the same area.
Right.
That way, everyone can enjoy the benefits of being outdoors and connecting with nature, regardless of their physical capabilities.
It's about making nature inclusive, and I know from personal experience how important that is.
Oh, I'd love to hear about that.
Well, a few years ago, I was recovering from an injury and felt really discouraged because I thought my hiking days were over. I thought everything would be too strenuous. But then I discovered a local group that organized accessible hikes on gentler trails. It was a game changer. It allowed me to stay active, connect with nature, and meet some amazing people. It really opened my eyes to the importance of making outdoor recreation inclusive for everyone.
That's a fantastic story, and it highlights how something as simple as offering a variety of trail options can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And another idea that Not Pays Not Text mentioned was offering more affordable rental options for bikes and other outdoor gear.
That's essential. Not everyone can afford to buy top-of-the-line equipment, especially if they're just starting out. Having access to rentals makes these activities so much more accessible to a wider range of people.
Right. Maybe someone rents a bike for a weekend trip and ends up falling in love with cycling. It's about lowering the barriers to entry and opening doors to new experiences.
And once those doors are open, it's important to have a supportive community waiting on the other side. Not Paste, Not Text also talks about how crucial it is to cultivate welcoming and inclusive communities around sustainable adventure.
Because it's much easier to stick with something when you feel like you're part of a community, right?
Exactly. Think group rides, hikes, workshops, spaces where people can share tips, learn from each other, and build a sense of camaraderie.
I've definitely experienced that firsthand. I joined a local hiking group a few years ago, and it's been amazing. Not only have I discovered new trails and hidden gems in my own area, but I've also met some incredibly inspiring people who share my passion for exploring the outdoors sustainably. I've even learned new skills like basic bike maintenance and wilderness first aid. It's like having a built-in support system.
And that sense of community can be especially empowering for people who might feel intimidated or unsure about getting started with adventure activities. It's about creating a welcoming space where everyone feels encouraged and supported.
Speaking of support, I've been thinking a lot about the role of intergenerational connections in fostering a love for sustainable adventure. I see so much potential for bridging generations through these shared
I
experiences.
love where you're going with this.
Imagine grandparents sharing their love of hiking with their grandchildren, or parents teaching their kids how to fix a flat tire on a bike. It's about passing on not just knowledge and skills, but also a deep appreciation for nature and a sense of responsibility for protecting our planet.
It's about creating lasting memories and strengthening family bonds while fostering a sense of stewardship for future generations.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sustainable adventure is not just about individual journeys, but about building a more sustainable future for everyone.
Beautifully said. With all this talk about building a better future, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are also some bumps along the road.
Definitely. We've talked about the importance of infrastructure, community, and shifting mindsets. But what about the real world challenges we face in making sustainable adventure a reality?
Well, as Natex points out, one of the biggest hurdles is overcoming deeply ingrained habits and attitudes towards transportation.
We're talking about decades of car centric culture, right?
Exactly. In many places, the default mode of transport is still the car, even for short distances. And that's a tough habit to break.
Especially when you factor in convenience, safety concerns, and the lack of adequate infrastructure in some areas.
You're hitting all the key points. People often choose the car because it feels like the easier, faster, or safer option, even if they know it's not the most sustainable choice.
So, how do we start to shift those mindsets? How do we make sustainable transportation feel like the obvious choice, not the alternative?
One approach Natex suggested is implementing incentive programs that make biking and walking more appealing.
Okay.
Think tax breaks for people who commute by bike, discounts at local businesses for those who arrive on foot, or even just rewarding people with points or prizes for choosing sustainable transportation options.
It's about positive reinforcement, right? Making
Mhm.
people feel good about making those choices.
Exactly. And hopefully over time, those choices become less about the incentives and more about the inherent enjoyment and benefits of active transportation. It becomes a natural part of their routine.
That makes sense. But incentives alone won't solve the problem. We also need to address the deeper cultural attitudes that privilege car ownership.
I agree. Now, Natex talked about the importance of public awareness campaigns that challenge those ingrained assumptions and showcase the multifaceted benefits of sustainable adventure.
So instead of just focusing on the environmental benefits, we also highlight the health, economic, and social benefits.
Exactly. It's about framing sustainable adventure as a win-win for everyone, not just a sacrifice we have to make for the sake of the planet.
Because let's face it, no one likes to feel like they're being lectured or guilt-tripped into making a change.
Exactly. We need to make sustainable adventure feel aspirational, joyful, and empowering.
Right.
And it has to be accessible,
Yes,
not just something for elite athletes or wealthy environmentalists.
I love that. It's about showcasing how sustainable adventure can enhance your life, connect you with your community, and give you a sense of agency in creating a better future.
And it's about celebrating the diversity of ways people can engage with this movement. It's not just about hardcore bike packers and marathon runners. It's about families biking to the park, seniors taking a stroll in their neighborhood, and kids walking to school with their friends.
It's about making sustainable adventure a normal part of everyday life. Now, while individual actions are important, we also need systemic change to create a truly sustainable future for adventure, biking, and walking, right?
Absolutely. We can't just rely on individual willpower. Not paced, not text emphasizes the crucial role of government policies and infrastructure investments in promoting sustainable transportation.
So we're talking dedicated bike lanes, safe pedestrian crossings, expanded public transportation networks, and policies that prioritize active mobility over car-centric infrastructure.
Exactly. These are the kinds of systemic changes that create an environment where sustainable transportation is not just possible, but preferable.
Because when you make it easy, safe, and convenient for people to choose biking and walking, that's when you see real lasting change.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about urban areas either. We need to invest in sustainable transportation infrastructure in rural areas as well.
Right, connecting towns and villages with bike paths, improving access to hiking trails, and ensuring that public transportation options are available to people who live outside of major cities.
Exactly. It's about creating a more equitable and sustainable transportation system that benefits everyone, regardless of where they live.
I couldn't agree more. But even with the best infrastructure and policies in place, there's still one crucial element that can make or break the success of any sustainable initiative:
What's that?
community engagement.
Oh, yeah.
We can't just build bike lanes and hiking trails and expect people to magically start using them.
Mm.
We need to actively involve communities in the planning and implementation of these projects.
You're absolutely right. And the Pacement text really emphasized that point. We need to listen to people's concerns, address their needs, and create solutions that work for everyone.
Because when people feel like they're part of the process, they're more likely to embrace the changes and become advocates for sustainable transportation in their own communities. It creates a sense of ownership and pride.
Exactly. And that brings us to a crucial question. How do we inspire that kind of collective action? How do we ignite a passion for sustainable adventure that spreads like wildfire?
Ooh, good question. I have a feeling the Paste Not text might have some ideas on that.
They do. And one powerful approach they suggest is to tap into the power of storytelling.
Because stories have the ability to connect with people on an emotional level and inspire action, right? They make abstract concepts feel real and relatable.
Exactly. When we share stories about the joys of biking to work, the transformative experiences of hiking in nature, or the sense of community that comes from joining a local cycling group, we make sustainable adventure feel aspirational and achievable.
We show people that it's not about deprivation or sacrifice. It's about enriching their lives and connecting with something larger than themselves.
And that's a powerful message. Another way to inspire collective action is to showcase the tangible benefits of sustainable adventure in local communities.
So, highlighting the economic boost that comes from bike tourism, the improved air quality that results from reduced car traffic, or the health benefits of walking and cycling.
Exactly. When people see the positive impacts in their own backyards, they're more likely to get on board and become advocates for change.
It's about making the abstract concept of sustainability concrete and relevant to people's everyday lives. It's about showing them that their choices matter, that they can make a difference.
And that's how we build momentum for lasting change.
So we've talked about the power of storytelling, the importance of showcasing local benefits, but I think there's one more ingredient that's essential for sparking a movement towards sustainable adventure:
I'm intrigued. What is it?
celebration.
Celebration.
Yes, we need to celebrate the successes, big and small, along the way. Every new bike lane, every community hiking event, every person who chooses to walk instead of drive. These are all victories worth celebrating.
You're right. Celebrating those wins creates a sense of positive energy and reinforces the idea that we're making progress toward a shared goal. It makes the journey feel more fun and less daunting.
It reminds us that change is possible and that even small actions can add up to create a big impact.
And it inspires others to join the movement and become part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, sustainable adventure is not just about individual choices, it's about creating a world where those choices are supported, encouraged, and celebrated.
It's about building a future where adventure and sustainability go hand in hand.
Well said. Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but I want to take a moment to address a question that I'm sure is on many of our listeners' minds.
What's that?
With all the talk about climate change, over-tourism, and the challenges facing our planet, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and even a bit hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give to someone who wants to make a difference but doesn't know where to start?
That's a great question. And my advice would be this. Start small, start local, and don't be afraid to dream big.
Okay, I like that. Let's break it down. What do you mean by start small?
I mean, don't feel like you have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Start with one small change that you can easily incorporate into your daily routine.
Like swapping one car trip per week for a bike ride or a walk.
Exactly. Or choosing to buy produce from a local farmer's market instead of a big supermarket chain. Or even just making a conscious effort to reduce your energy consumption at home.
Small steps that add up over time. And what about start local?
That means focusing your efforts on your own community.
Okay.
Get involved in local initiatives, support businesses that are committed to sustainability, and advocate for change at the local level.
Because change Often starts at the grassroots level, right?
Exactly. And when you see positive changes happening in your own community, it can be incredibly inspiring and motivating.
And finally, don't be afraid to dream big.
Yes. Don't let the scale of the challenges we face paralyze you into inaction. Dream big about the kind of world you want to live in, a world where sustainable adventure is not just a niche activity, but a way of life.
A world where people and planet thrive together in harmony.
Exactly. And then channel those big dreams into concrete actions, no matter how small they may seem.
Because every step we take, no matter how small, brings us closer to that vision.
And that's a journey worth taking.
Well said. Now, I know we've thrown a lot of information at our listeners today, so before we wrap up, I want to circle back to some of the key takeaways from our deep dive into sustainable adventure, biking, and walking. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the idea that sustainable adventure is about so much more than just reducing our environmental impact. It's about enhancing our lives, connecting with communities, and creating a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that sustainability is not just a destination, it's a journey.
A journey that requires us to constantly learn, adapt, and challenge our assumptions.
And to embrace the joy, the adventure, and the sense of connection that comes from exploring the world in a way that honors both people and planet.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's a good place to wrap up part 2 of this deep dive. We'll be back for part 3, where we explore some final thoughts and takeaways for you to ponder.
Welcome back to the Deep Dives, everyone. We've been talking all about what it means to approach adventure biking and walking with a sustainability mindset using NetPaste and NetText as our guide.
And you know what, this last part, I kind of want to shift from the what to the so what. What does all this information actually mean for how we explore and for the future of these activities that we love?
Great point. It's easy to get caught up in the details and lose sight of the bigger picture. So, takeaways. What are some of the most important things you hope listeners will remember from this deep dive?
Well, one thing that just keeps coming back to me is that sustainable adventure isn't about deprivation or guilt. It's about enhancing the experience, both for ourselves and for the places that we visit.
It's about making those experiences more meaningful, more connected, more impactful.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more sustainable future for adventure. It's not just about individual actions, it's about collective effort, community engagement, and systemic change.
We talked about the importance of supporting local businesses, advocating for better infrastructure, and shifting mindsets away from car-centric culture. But I think one of the most powerful takeaways for me is this idea that sustainable adventure can actually be a source of joy and celebration.
Absolutely. It's about finding those moments of awe and wonder in nature, connecting with like-minded people, and feeling empowered to make a difference. It's not about sacrificing the things we love. It's about doing them in a way that honors both people and planet.
Recognizing that adventure and sustainability aren't mutually exclusive, they can actually complement and enhance each other. Before we sign off, I want to pose one final question to our listeners, something that wasn't explicitly addressed in NetPaste NetText, but something that I think is worth pondering.
I'm all ears.
We've talked a lot about the external aspects of sustainable adventure, the infrastructure, the policies, the community engagement. But what about the internal shifts that need to happen within each of us? What about the mindset and values that underpin our choices?
It's a profound question. I think it goes beyond just choosing to bike instead of drive or packing out our trash. It's about cultivating a deeper sense of connection to nature, a sense of responsibility for our impact, and a willingness to embrace a slower, more mindful way of traveling.
Shifting from a consumer mindset to a stewardship mindset, recognizing that the places we explore aren't just destinations to be consumed, but ecosystems to be cherished and protected.
Beautifully said. And that shift in mindset can ripple outward, influencing not just our travel habits, but also our everyday choices, our relationships with others, and our commitment to creating a more just and sustainable world.
It's about recognizing that sustainable adventure isn't just a hobby or a trend, it's a way of life. And on that note, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
But before we do, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge. Throughout this whole episode, we've explored the many facets of sustainable adventure, biking and walking. We've talked about the benefits, the challenges, and the ways we can all contribute to a more sustainable future. So my challenge to our listeners is this. Now that you've had a chance to dive deep into this topic, what's one small change you can make in your own travel habits?
I love that. It's not about feeling overwhelmed or trying to do everything at once.
Exactly. It's about identifying one specific action you can take, no matter where you live or how you choose to explore. Maybe it's committing to bike to work once a week,
Or choosing to walk instead of drive for those short errands.
or planning a hiking trip that supports local communities and minimizes your environmental impact.
Whatever it is, make it something achievable, something you can stick with, something that brings you joy. Because sustainable adventure shouldn't feel like a chore. It should be something you look forward to.
Well said. And remember, even small changes, when multiplied across a community, can have a ripple effect, creating a wave of positive change that extends far beyond ourselves.
That's what makes this journey so exciting. We're all in this together, creating a more sustainable and adventurous future, one step at a time. So get out there, explore, and make a difference.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And for those of you who want to delve deeper into this topic, be sure to check out the show notes for links to Not Paste and Not Text and some additional resources that we think you'll find helpful. Until next time, happy adventuring.